I have my daughter Grace Victoria with us again, and we had fun talking in our last podcast about trust and about the seasons of life that we go through. And in a winter season, we're challenged, and we kind of highlighted a couple of low points in your journey with the Lord, but how they took you into that deeper place of trust. And I love what you said last time about stewarding over this little seed in your heart that is your trust in your relationship with the Lord. And as a mom, I'm just sitting here and I'm just mesmerized by how mature your relationship with the Lord is and how well you communicate it. And so I'm just grateful that you were willing to get on the podcast with me. So this time I thought it would be really cool if we kind of fast forward a little bit. We talked about how hard it was for you as a teenager moving here to California, and just to kind of full circle with that story, your heart really shifted, and now you're in a place where you, I assume, are grateful to be here in California. Mm-hmm. Can you just kind of share what was it like? Any highlights that you want to talk about? What it was like growing up as a pastor's kid, and then now what it's like, that shift and change of living in the Southern culture, an environment of the South, and our roots still being there, to kind of how you might see the world differently based on living here on the West Coast, and specifically in this amazing, crazy state called California. You want to talk into any of that?
Yeah. So growing up a pastor's kid, I don't ever not remember being a pastor's kid. So to me, it just felt completely normal. My whole life kind of revolved around church, and I loved it, and it just felt normal. I wasn't one of those pastor's kids, just making a generalization, that hated the church and secretly rebelled, or I don't know. I didn't have any problems with that. I know all of my sisters had unique experiences, and I was the third youngest, so I think that I didn't...
Or the third oldest. You were born third.
Yeah. I wasn't under as much pressure, I guess, being the third, because they kind of were pioneers for me,
True.
They went before me. So I just enjoyed friends and grew up. I would say the only parts that really bothered me was sharing my parents with everyone else, because it wasn't just church, it was traveling. My dad was out of the country a lot, and so we would have different people come stay with us at the house, and that was not my favorite. Not that I don't love all of you people who stayed with me, but you're not mom and dad. So I think that I grew up learning that anytime people always ask my parents and other people that are in ministry or leadership, how do you balance family and how do you balance the church or ministry and make sure that your kids never lose? Well, I think that we both would say that's not true, to think that if you live a life of ministry that your kids will never lose. They just always made sure that we would win more than we would lose, meaning that we got the benefits and the blessings and exciting opportunities out of it more than we had to suffer them not being around, or sharing them at church all the time and not having access to them like you necessarily would normal parents. And our lives were just a little bit different being in ministry, and people pulling on my parents and kind of having expectation on us, all the things that come with being a pastor's kid. But we would get to go and travel with them all over the world. We would get to, I don't know, it was just fun to me. You kind of feel like the center of attention when you're a kid, being a pastor's kid. So some people hate that. I liked that when I was a kid. I was like, yeah, everyone's watching me. So my oldest sister would probably say the opposite. She hated that, but I was just a kid, so I enjoyed it. But then, yeah.
How did it feel for you, like when we would travel and we would ask you to help us minister or put you on a prophetic team or help pray over people and lay hands on people. How did you experience that as a negative or a positive? What was that like for you?
You know, I think I was so young that I didn't even think of it as abnormal or stretching, or I did now, like once I got older, like I'm still growing out of being comfortable in that kind of setting. I'm not naturally one that likes to take the microphone and speak and share on things, but I do it just because I know that is supposed to be a normal part of life. Yeah. Being in a relationship with Jesus, loving people, and that's what it looked like when he was on earth, so that's what I want it to look like. But back in the day, I was on prophetic teams, and I don't think I even really knew what I was doing. It just felt like I've only known this, so this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But then, that's why Jesus talks about being childlike in the Bible, because you don't actually know what shame is or embarrassment or fear. I mean, sometimes you do, but I wasn't aware of those things. I was just really innocent-minded and pure-hearted, and then you get older, then you start worrying about people more, and you give fear a bit more of a voice. At least I did. Mm-hmm. So I had to journey through that, especially leaving that culture, because that was my whole world. So it felt like a culture shock, not only when my parents stopped pastoring, but especially moving far away where I didn't have friends to lean back on. I didn't have family to lean back on, except my immediate family, but no relatives or anything. We were just kind of there.
Yeah.
All of a sudden with girls who... Like, it was really difficult for us to find a church to get involved in, so I didn't have any of the things that had been stabilizing to me before.
Yeah.
So really, it was just me and Jesus and my parents, my sisters.
And for us, too. I mean, it was such a huge move coming out here. And people asked me after we got out here, you know, how is it? How's it been? And I'm like, this is so hard because California doesn't easily... in the spirit realm, it doesn't easily open up and welcome you. There is a definite resistance here. There's a reason why pioneers come here in every area of culture, and there's a reason why many don't survive it and they go back to wherever they came from. Mm-hmm. But I remember just feeling like, what have we done to our kids? What have we done to our family, you know? And as hard as it was moving here to California, what was even harder for me was the loss of identity. For so many years, I was a pastor. And I knew my role. I knew I had relationships that were centered around and rooted in that being my identity. Mm-hmm. I think for all of us, I remember you girls asking, well, now that I don't remember which one of y'all actually said this, but now that we're not pastors' kids, what are we? And you know, I didn't know how to answer it because I felt the same way, you know, and it forced all of us to just go to this new place of identity within ourselves, with the Lord, with each other, and with people. Yeah, you know, and it's taken time for that to shift. So once the Lord spoke to you, what was next for you once you graduated from high school? And we were pretty settled here in the state and got some roots down. Yeah. 3 years ago, you felt the Lord direct you to go to Bethel Supernatural School of Ministry. Yep. And your older sister Justice had been there 1 year, and she had come back and had a great experience herself there. But I remember at one point you thinking, I don't think that's for me. I don't think I'll be going there. But then clearly God shifted your heart. Yeah. You ended up there. Can you give us, just continuing on talking about things that God has been doing in your own life, can you give us some just core values? And I'll start you off on one. I just heard you say the most profound thing. And you do this all the time. You don't even realize you're doing it. But you say these profound, like, treasures that I'm like, wait, if I had understood that at Grace's age, my goodness. But just a moment ago you said not giving fear a voice. And that definitely is something that's been added to you in your experience this next part of your journey, and that just happened to be at Bethel. And what can you talk more into that, not giving fear a voice? And then any other highlights of things that you feel like they're core values that you're taking with you after these three years there?
Yeah. So I think that most of the thoughts that come into our minds are either the root of love or the root of fear. And
Wow.
just because you have those voices in your head doesn't mean that you are locked in it. It's more so if you give it a voice and if you feed into it. Because at any given moment, I can choose to give love a more powerful voice than fear, but it takes an action. So it does take courage to come against that.
It's so powerful.
Yeah, it's really difficult. It's not necessarily a fun process. Like fear, I feel like the only way to really get out of fear, you can't just like wait around for it to go away or process your way out of it. You actually have to do the opposite and feed love and not fear. So for me in school, they stretch you in all kinds of fun ways and things that were really outside my comfort zone, things that I did easily as a kid back in church under my parents' covering, but it feels so different when you are no longer the big fish in a small pond. Everyone is a small fish in a giant pond there because there's people from all over the world and they're all incredible, they're all powerful, they all have like incredible places that they're headed to. You can just see it on everyone's lives. So for me, the first year of school was really challenging for multiple reasons. One, being outside of the house and away from my family for the first time ever. It's like
Were you 18 when you went? Yeah.
It's an 8-hour drive, 8 hours north, all the way to a little town in Redding. Didn't know anybody, didn't really know why I was there because I didn't want to go. I think that, well, that's another story, but I didn't want to go, and I felt like the Lord kept opening the door. So I was like, I just got to go the only place that I feel like the Lord is speaking or highlighting. And I still wasn't sure, but that was my journey with trust once again.
Yeah.
So I go, and it's really stretching, and I think that I became aware for the first time that I was giving fear a voice, because that's the first step, is knowing what voice you're feeding. And you don't really realize how many fears you have until you're asked to look at them and face them. And they do a good job of helping you look at fear at Bethel. Which was really good for me. So the first year was a lot of me getting outside of my comfort zone and not having family to hide behind or be my confidence. It really was just me and the Lord, and where is my identity rooted? And if it comes from my family or our identity as a whole, then that's not healthy, and that's me being hidden.
And people should be aware that even though we have a relationship with Bill Johnson and Chris Valentin, they were not necessarily even aware that Grace was there. There was no special privileges given to her, or, she wasn't known.
Tiny little speck of dust on a star in the universe.
That's how it felt, huh?
That's how it felt, because, I just had to go out of my way and make relationships. And
yeah, she had to blaze her own trail there very much.
It's a huge group of people in first year also. There's almost 2,000 students. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I didn't want to do second year because I was like, oh, that was so uncomfortable. It was really good for me. I'm so glad I did all that, but I don't want to do it again. But God told me to, so I did second year. And just so you know, it's a lot more fun than just getting over fear. But this is what I'm highlighting right now. So I became more aware of what I was actually doing, getting outside of my comfort zone, and God was giving me language for it. Like, are you going to choose and feed that voice, or are you going to feed my voice? Because ultimately, that is rooted in Satan, and this is rooted in me and my love, and this is what's going to grow you and give you life and take you to the next step. And this is a huge part of trusting me, because if fear is on your journey with you, you can't actually be elevated, because fear is always going to keep you back and hold you down. So I continued on that in second year, and I feel like I had so much breakthrough in second year. And there was a lot going on in my second year outside of school, just family things, and I was having more problems with my health. That's another story. But I got to the point where I so didn't even care that I just completely let go of all of the fear, and I just lived life. And I can't explain to you how freeing it was to just be like, I can love people, and I can figure out who I am and how I want to be and how I want to interact and what kind of leader I want to be, without always thinking about how other people are perceiving me or what's right, what's wrong. Like, I would overanalyze everything. So it was really freeing for me to just be like, I have my eyes completely on you, Lord, for the first time, and I'm only giving love a voice in my life. And that elevated me so much more. And ultimately, like, as I moved forward in my second year, it was incredible, and I ended up getting an offer for an amazing internship for my third year, which I'm in right now. And just actually seeing the practical evidence of what feeding love looks like and where it takes you and how much happier you live in your life. Very empowering, very freeing. And
so when you say giving love a voice, I can relate to the not giving fear a voice, because I know very much what fear sounds like. What does it sound like to give love a voice? Is it like where you're thinking, rather than thinking, you know, I'm not good enough, I don't measure up or whatever, it's thinking, I'm loved, I'm valued, I'm safe?
Yeah, I think that it can sound like different things for everyone. Sometimes for me, it was a really quiet whisper in the face of fear, and it looked like me having to get really still and really quiet, and sometimes not. Like, I could have a train of thought that would lead down fear and
all the what ifs.
All the what ifs and unraveling, and, like, not even just in the context of school and, like, being brave to minister or whatever. It was just things that I was struggling with personally with my health and family things and so on. So for me, it looked like all of a sudden I would feel this nudge in my heart when I would go down these long trails of what if and worst case scenario, and oh, how could I actually live in this lifestyle and embrace the hard life that I'm going to have to live and be positive anyways. All of a sudden I would feel like this nudge in my heart, like, what are you doing? And then I would, like, cut it off, and I would say, I'm not even going to go there. That's an unhealthy train of thought that I know for a fact that is not what my Father says about my life.
It's based in fear.
It's based in fear. So I would get completely still and quiet, and I would not even go there. And I would just ask the Lord, what do you think right now? Like, what do you think about me? What do you think about where I'm going in life? Or I would even keep it smaller. Like, if you can't look at a big picture, just keep shrinking the picture until you can go there personally. So for me, I was like, what does success look like today?
Wow.
And this day, what does success look like? Because it's different for every person. For one person, it could be like going and getting 100 people saved in the street. But for me, it could just look like showing up and smiling at all the people I see at school today and being authentic and maybe prophesying over one person or whatever. Like, it doesn't have to look like that. But essentially, giving love a voice is giving the Father a voice and letting him be your first connection and the first thing that you choose to look at every day, and saying, hey, what does success look like for me today? And, like, how are we going to do it together? Because it can be fun. Sometimes success is not actually a spiritual thing, and it's just really fun. Like, oh, let's go hiking together and just hang out, or let's, go call some of your friends and go hang out and just chill out for a while, or go be creative and go write music and sing at the piano. It's not necessarily serious, and it's not necessarily the most spiritual thing you can think of. I was always shocked by what love would tell me. Wow. So that's why all that to say is love is basically the voice of a Father in your life who is affirming you and being involved in the details of your life, not necessarily the crises and the big picture things. Because he's Savior over the hard points in your life, of course. But if that's all we go to is when we're in crisis, that just probably isn't very relational, isn't very an honest connection. If we're in friendship with God, then you have to actually treat him like you would if you're going to call a friend up. You don't only ask them, okay, I'm in panic right now. What do I do?
Right.
How do I get out of this? You're like, I did this today. It was really fun. You want to go hang out? Like, you don't have to over spiritualize or make everything an emergency in your heart.
And as from an older person's perspective, someone who's in the season of life of paying bills and raising kids and just the normal harder parts of life. For me, what that looks and sounds like is, like you said, not giving fear a voice. And I found myself over the years like looking at God in the middle of what felt like crisis to me, and trying to find worry in his face. Like I needed him to be as concerned and worried as I was. And I don't know about you, but I have never found worry or concern in my Father's face. No matter what the circumstance was in front of me or how impossible something looks. And sometimes it's almost offensive because you want him to panic. You want to feel like, but that's fear. That's a voice of fear. That's not a voice of love. Love is a power. Love is God, and God is power, and God is love. And so there's this powerful love that he is and that he has that is confident and sure and never shaken. And it's the most stable thing we could ever hope for. And so kind of what I hear you saying about giving love a voice is this place of looking into the Father's face, and on any given day, at any given moment, or in the face of any situation, and hearing this voice of confidence and love and power that has solutions and answers, so much so that sometimes he's not even ready to tell you the solution and answer that he already has. And
sometimes it's in the mystery and it's in the waiting, and you don't actually have to have a game plan, because he's Father, so he's the one that is a shepherd and looking out at the trail ahead, and you're the sheep. So you don't always have to know the plan. You just follow your shepherd and trust that he's going to protect you and keep you and take
so
you
good.
to green fields,
Oh, she's preaching to my heart. Well, would you be willing to pray over those that are watching and listening into just some of what you've been talking about?
Yeah.
We'll close with that.
Yeah. Lord, I just ask that your presence would come, and that we would be even more aware of you and where you are in any given day, at any given moment, that you would show yourself as a good shepherd and a good father, because you are.
Yeah.
And we love that about you. Lord, I ask that you would just be our gentle reminder, that you would be the nudge in someone's heart, that we would be able to be aware of that nudge of when we're giving fear a voice, that we would cut it off at the source, Lord, and be able to look at you and say, but what do you say, and where are you right now? Because I don't think that you're in the same place that my mind is traveling down. So God, I ask for your gentle reminder, for your love.
Yes,
and
Father.
I thank you that you are a good, good shepherd.
Yeah.
And that we can trust you to be our protector, our keeper, and our ultimate leader, Lord. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. Well, thanks for joining us, and we hope that you will tell more people about our podcast and how they can subscribe. Some of you probably prefer podcasts, some of you might prefer video, so we provide both for you. And we would love for you to help us get the word out about just some of our resources and how maybe these videos and podcasts have encouraged you. So thanks for joining us.